people say stuff just to get clicks and viral and all that bullshit. So Rasheed Wallace, shut up. Like, I love you, dude, but shut up. Like, LeBron would never do that against my guys. He kind of did. He did. I watched it, and it actually was heart wrenching. And you guys who wouldn't even fucking double team him, like what? Like watching that was like literally watching your parents die. It's like, what the fuck? Can you just get the ball in his hands? Like, it's not that hard. Make Big Z beat you. Anybody else? Like literally anybody. Welcome to episode 26 of the David Binkowski podcast. Joining me today from SportsGrid, the CTO is Arturo Galletti. Arturo, welcome into the podcast.
Nice to meet you here, David.
Thanks again for coming on. We have some NBA stuff to talk about today. And before we get to that, somebody who I have been a fan of since it feels like 30 years, and you expressed that you're also a fan past this last week. And we'd be remiss if we didn't really spend a little bit of this podcast talking about comedian Norm MacDonald. He was somebody that started his career from Canada and ended up coming to the U.S. and getting on SNL, which is no small feat. And that's where he was exposed to a lot of people around the world, but mostly in the U.S. And he was the Weekend Update anchor, but also just a brilliant and fabulous comedian. When it was for me personally, it was fairly hard hitting that a comedian died. The idols and people you looked up to and that you grew up with, whether it's George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, and now Norm, all seem to be passing, which is sad. But I don't know, Arturo, what your experience was with Norm, or if you were a huge fan or just a fan or what have you. But how did you hear about it, and how did you take it this week?
No, I was literally on. I follow him on Twitter. I was on, and there's a bunch of people who follow him. He and later on in his career, he did a lot of things. He would live tweet out sporting events, or so he bet the line on something, or he'd live tweet about the bets he made. He'd make a comment, he was always one of these guys. Well, the thing about him was that he kind of understood that the job of the comedian is never to punch down, but to punch up, right? So, and that's really kind of, the way he told, the way he did comedy wasn't necessarily like the way he did jokes. It was about kind of the delivery and kind of the way that you tell a story, right? Yep. And so there's a lot of great fits that he did, but also the things that got into trouble was because he's meant to kind of challenge authorities. And when somebody was told not to do something, there's a famous story of how he got fired from SNL. He didn't. He got fired and stuff. So the way he lost his Weekend Update gig was because he wouldn't stop making jokes about OJ. Right. So OJ was really good friends with the president of NBC, Oldmeyer, and he would he would just, keep hammering the nail, and he killed his wife and whatnot. Oldmeyer told him to stop, and he just literally just would keep going until, he lost that gig. And he was a guy who was very, very, very funny, but he was also very, very much a comedian in that he didn't know, he didn't, there's a saying fast, he didn't have pelos en la lengua, which means he didn't have any hair on his tongue, which means he just wouldn't, he wouldn't not say something, right? So I think I shared this bit. There's a great bit with, you can look it up. It's him talking to, oh God, I remember what's his name? The Comedy Central guy. Jon
Stewart.
Yeah, Jon Stewart. Yeah, so he started Jon Stewart. This is just after the crocodile hunter died. And it's this great bit about crocodiles talking about the crocodile hunter. And they're all mad because they're gonna it was a manta ray that killed him, not them. And they're like, oh God, I could have killed him. And you can tell Jon Stewart's desperately trying not to laugh, right? Because it's you can argue it's for days, but really it's funny because you're saying, look, it's a crocodile hunter. He lived very long for a crocodile hunter. Dude, it's like doing a dangerous job. you can expect some consequences. And I mean, there's another great skit with he's in a car with a comedian's in a car, the Seinfeld show where like he just talks to comedians. Where he's talking about Bill Cosby, and somebody I think Seinfeld asked him, "You think he's a hypocrite?" He said, "Well, he's a rapist, right? I think rapists aren't hypocrites, right?" And like Seinfeld's just cracking up because it's not language that anybody kind of uses the way kind of interpret it, but he's very specific and very direct in what he says, and that has real value. It's a comedian show that speaks truth to power, and he was a guy who always spoke truth to power, right?
Yep.
And sometimes I got in trouble because he's the kind of guy that like he would have an opinion whether or not it was popular, right? And I think sometimes in this world that we live in, we're scared to like there's this like idea that there's monoculture and you have to like think a certain way, and if you have like a different opinion, and I don't mean like thinking that like you should like white supremacy or anything. I'm saying like just if he had if he was going to mock you regardless of where you were, right? Or what side you're on. And I think it's actually like really important because sometimes you lose sight of that, right? And
that's the job of a comedian is to literally make light of or shine a light on or poke fun at the things that are going on. And I think he shares a similar trait to another comic that I like in Anthony Jeselnik. I don't know if Jeselnik is down that level, but it's taking the other perspective or taking a different perspective and looking at a situation that truly is terrible, like Steve Irwin's death, and saying, what do you think the crocodiles felt about that? Like, how do you think they felt, right? Like that to me is the genius of it, is not taking the easy road. But like,
I mean, I used to watch Crocodile Hunter and see the interviews, and I'm pretty sure that Steve Irwin's first one, who would have freaking loved that routine, right? Because you understand who you are, and like, it's the joke about like wrestlers and like what Irwin was carny stuff, right? So he's a bit of a carny, and he understands like when you're carny and you're doing this stuff, you understand that there's a level of risk that you take, right? So you're perfectly happy with it, and I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It just
I thought the other thing, the other part of there's another thing that he had talked about. You mentioned the comedian Cars Coffee. He talked about television and the fact that when you're on TV, you can't bomb. Like it's almost impossible. You can't bomb, especially on a sitcom. And so to him, that wasn't actually comedy. And so that's why he liked, going to your point about he'll plow through a joke, even if it's bombing on SNL, he would still plow through it as if like he didn't care. This is a good joke. I'm going to tell it no matter what. And that was probably the closest to being in a club as you can get, as opposed to he was talking about when he had his own shows, whether it was on ABC or Comedy Central or what have you with his sitcoms. And he hated it because it was like everything's funny all the time. And that's just not how it goes. That's not how comedy works. So,
I mean, I think I would say the first thing he was on, his first big break was the writer on Roseanne.
Yep.
And I think some of that, like that show, regardless of like, I mean, Roseanne kind of went off the deep end when she got older. But that show was a really kind of, there's something that's actually been lost. Where like these shows now don't act like TV shows don't reflect reality, right? So there's a joke about like Simpsons. Simpsons has been on TV and long enough that like the kind of life that Homer Simpson is living now on TV is impossible with the kind of job that he has. And the kind of job that he has, it's not a job that you can actually get, right? So it's not a reflective reality. And I think Roseanne was a show that like was very reflective of realities. Like the people on that show struggled, right? It wasn't clean. It wasn't nice. You know, they weren't rich. They lived in a fairly decent house, but they were always struggling to make ends meet and things happen. And that's something that's kind of been lost in terms of like when we look at like, you know, TV and culture, right? That's not something that you see. It wasn't sanitized. It wasn't clean. And I think that's kind of, you know, the same thing. Like what I respected about him is the way he told the story, right?
Yep.
And like you were getting, like when he was talking, you were getting him. He was talking, he was doing that, and that's he was an artist about. You believe he had that plausible deniability. Something they call it wrestling kayfabe, right? You believe this man when he talked to you. You believe, right? Whether or not it was true or not, you believe him. And I mean, it was really surprising because like he didn't tell anybody. He didn't sell that he had cancer, right? He just had it. He took care of it privately, and people, and it's funny because I was looking at his feed, and he hadn't like tweeted out like since July, right? And he would have, like in a normal situation, he would have talked about the U.S. Open, right? Because it's just the kind of thing that he would have talked. Because he probably would have had money on somebody. He would talk about it. He would have talked about golf. So I mean, he's a voice, and he was an important voice, I think. And he's a guy who's going to be missed because it's like reminds me a little bit of Hunter Thompson, like that too, where like you speak truth to power. And there's somebody who's sharing this on the anniversary of 9/11. There's this great column that Hunter Thompson wrote on September 12th, 2001, on the old Page 2 blog on ESPN, where he literally just describes this column says like, we're at war now, and we're going to be at war for the rest of our lives, right? And he kind of said, this is how, it's describing how the world's going to be and how things are. And it's kind of sad. It's because it's prescient, right? So he's saying what's going to happen, and it's a voice that's just not going to be there. And it's a voice that its absence is going to be deeply felt because, it's not, we don't have people like that in the, that are just going to go out here and like, be upfront. And I mean, we have guys who will come out and say whatever they think, but a lot of them are dickholes, right? So he wasn't that, right? And I respect, and that's going to be missed. And nice guy. You like them, you interact with him. There's a great tweet he did, where Neil deGrasse Tyson says that basically the universe is not compassionate and doesn't care about your feelings. And his response was like, well, but we're a subset of the universe and we do, right? So there's compassion and humility and sympathy in the individuals, and we're part of the universe, right? So it's a really he's a very thoughtful man too, which I much appreciated.
Yep, I agree. If you've not read his book, he did a book a few years ago. It's really funny. It's worth
the memoir. I think the one.
Yes, yeah. It's worth the read. But yeah, again, rest in peace, Norm MacDonald. You'll be missed. So, awkward transition into the NBA. They released all the odds makers have released.
You want to talk about the whole thing first?
Yeah, we can do that too.
So there was a long running joke that we should like in the advanced stat circles. We said that like, basketball doesn't have a Hall of Fame because if basketball had a Hall of Fame, Ben Wallace should be in the Hall of Fame. So until he's in the Hall of Fame, there is no basketball Hall of Fame. So now we actually have the basketball Hall of Fame because Ben Wallace is finally elected to the Hall of Fame. It was actually a very interesting class, actually. But we long overdue that Ben Wallace got in. I thought he was a headline for me. Although, I mean, he probably wasn't the headline for a lot of people. I mean, the class was Bosch, Kukoc, Pierce, Wallace, Chris Webber, Yolanda Griffith, and Lauren Jackson. Right? So we had two WNBA players. And, I mean, some big names, right? And some big underrated. I mean, I think some overrated and some underrated names. I think Kukoc is a guy who I think is probably overrated. I don't necessarily have him in the Hall. But I do think a lot of these international guys are getting in because of the fact that they were kind of pioneers in the game. Well, I think Kukoc, just because, I mean, he won on that Bulls team, but he was kind of, it's kind of like if we elected Harrison Barnes to the Hall a little bit, right? So Bosch definitely is a guy who deserves it. I mean, he's a guy who sacrificed and changed his game to make that Heat team work. And his career was kind of cut short. Pearson's the guy who's very underrated because he played in Boston, which really sounds weird, but really, if he played, if you switch him and Kobe, I think, so if Kobe goes to Boston and Pierce goes to LA, I think the results are very similar. And I think Pearson's a statue outside of Forum, right? So, so difference in the career. Weber is also another interesting guy because of the Fab Five. And because he why Chris Webber never made it to the end? The reason why there's two reasons why Chris Webber never made it to the NBA Finals, right? So it's Donaghy and the whole scandal thing, and LeBron James going hog wild, putting up 48 in one game, right? That's in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yep. I believe it was it?
Yep.
It was 28 straight points, something like that. You're a Pistons fan, so you would know about this.
That was my distance. Yeah, it was 28 straight. It was.
That game lived. I was in Canada. That game lived on my DVR for like 5 years. Right, that was just insane. Like it's hard for people to explain. Like the fact that like just LeBron James just got the ball like all through the fourth quarter and all through overtime. It's just LeBron James he just got the ball and everything. Right, and the other team knew he was coming, and there was absolutely literally nothing you could do to stop him. There was like a period there. It happened to the Celtics there, but the Celtics actually got over him next year. But like he was just, there was one game where he put up like 55 points, and it took just like an insane effort just to kill him, right, to get him out of there. Because of that, I mean, eventually he figured out a little bit more. And again, there wasn't any that team, that 2007 team that like LeBron beat was a really good Pistons team, but like that Cavs team was crap, bro.
Geez. Well, that was as a Pistons fan watching it. Well, first of all, people say stuff just to get clicks and viral and all that bullshit. So Rasheed Wallace, shut up. Like, I love you, dude, but shut up. Like, LeBron would never do that against my guys. He kind of did. He did. I watched it, and it actually was heart-wrenching. And you guys wouldn't even fucking double team him. Like, what? Like, watching that was like literally watching your parents die. It's like, what the fuck? Just get the ball in his hands. Like, it's not that hard. Make Big Z beat you. Anybody else? Like, literally anybody.
I think this is a misconception because the way the rules work, they changed the zone rule in like. So zone really starts, I believe it's 2005, 2006, and it really kind of comes into vogue in that 2007, 2008 season. The Celtics and like that Celtics team is kind of the first big sewn-up team, and just devastating. Even the Spurs were doing it too, but like I mean and I think then the Mavs did it with that championship team. But like if you take LeBron and you put him in a game where you can't sewn up on it. So basically you have to cover one-on-one. And yeah, you have hand checks, but LeBron's like 280, right? LeBron's a freaking bull. Like, so if you put LeBron in a more physical situation, which he had earlier in the year, you get the same look kind of thing you got in that Pistons series, where he's literally just like, okay, I'm just going to go through you every single freaking time, right? So they get clear out. Those kind of stuff, like, people talk about like, the game's like, they like the old school game. Like, no, you didn't. Like, anybody who says they like the old school game, I invite you to find any game from like the 2001, 2002, 2003 playoffs and go watch that shit on NBA Classic. It is just, it's brutal, right? It's brutal. Because what they were doing at the time with the rules is like you could cover zones. So that what they would do is basically they would do these clear outs. So the guy would get the ball at the top of the key, and the other guy would basically go to the outside. They would literally walk to the outside of the court because you've got to cover people man up.
Yep.
Basically, if I take three of my offensive players and put them out of bounds or on the out of bounds line, the defenders have to go with them. So basically, you clear the court completely out at the 1-on-1 fucking game, right? And then you got the hands. No. Like, in fact, I'm at the point where I'm actually like leaning more towards. I like the FIBA game. Like the Olympics was much nicer in terms of like physical play style. But there, I mean, they don't have a 3 seconds penalty. So basically, you can play two centers because you can
camp out. Yep.
Well, no, not even camp out. You can play full zone, play two centers, and then kind of move the ball around. And what ends up happening is then like it becomes a lot more about it. You have to be able to drive up, right? So you have to drive up, you have to move around, and if you have a guy who can't play defense like Damian Lillard, you can't hide him, right? Until Team USA figure, hey, you can't play the one eventually will die. Got to move on. Like, you can't play him with other guys who can't play defense. It's kind of interesting. But, like, to the point, it was a good class. I'm glad Ben Wallace got in. If you haven't seen Ben Wallace's speech in the Hall of Fame is very good. I'm happy for Chris Bosh, who had to retire early. I feel for him. He's also a captain, so I respect that. And then, just a lot of good guys got in. My complaint is Tony Kukoc. But, international players is fun. Right, he's an early international player for the league, so I am not upset about it.
Historical context, it makes sense. But yeah, just going straight off of we lived through that era. I mean, 6-man, awesome, but you also played with Jordan. So,
the 6-man award is like the most worst. It's basically like who scores the most points coming off the bench. That's okay. It's a nice award, but it's not a reflective. I mean, I think the important one is that Ben Wallace was in. I mean, he was the key to those Pistons teams. They made six straight Eastern Conference Finals, and they made 2 finals. They won 1 title. It was a good team. He was a good player. He was the best player in the league. He should have been in the league. He should have been in the Hall of Fame, right? Can't have a Hall of Fame without the best defensive player of the last decade. So kudos to him. Okay, let's talk about this.
And not just because, and actually, I'll agree with you on Ben Wallace, obviously, not just as a Pistons fan, as a basketball fan. He literally changed games. And that the fact that he could guard at 6'8" or whatever he was, guarding 7-footers and going at guys. I mean, he was a presence. And like you said, he was the anchor for that defense. So, to say, well, I mean, with the success they had, find another team that has that success. All the Spurs are in, right? So they're going to keep those era teams. There's a reason they were a dynasty, is because they had a lot of good players. And it was awesome to see the entire going to work crew showed up as Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So yeah, absolutely kudos to all of them. C Webb, it was crazy because he and I have the same age. I played against them in a summer league and what have you. So yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see the guys that he played against actually get in and do that stuff. But yeah. So
my biggest really it's that Sacramento Kings team that really should have made finals, right?
Yep.
I think the Pistons team, if LeBron, as we've learned throughout LeBron's career, there are teams that just are not getting through LeBron, and that team wasn't getting through LeBron. And they were the first. Toronto can kind of commiserate with you on that one.
Yep. Yeah, every Eastern Conference team that didn't make it during the last however many years is going to commiserate. Yeah, he's a force. Now he's in the West and he's old. Awesome. But yeah. So let's talk NBA. They put out every year before the season starts is an opportunity for people to gamble, and you gamble on the total number of wins that each team in the NBA could have, and these are all done in, I believe, half numbers, so there's no push, right?
Yeah, typically what will happen is you'll have certain lines. What I've tried to do is get the best for the over and the best for the under. And as you said, typically, yeah, well, it'll be so for example, Orlando right now. Orlando is 21.5 for the over and 23.5 for the under. So you either bet over 21.5 or under 23.5. And they won about, I have this here. They won 20 about the equivalent of 24 games less, right? So basically, You're betting that they're either significantly worse or about the same this year. That's what you're. I mean, you're betting they're about a win worse or a little, or basically the same. So here's what it's kind of what your deal is for that. Yep. As an example, right? And you can decide whether or not you like it, whether you like the under, whether you like the over, whether you want to play or not. And I think. I mean, we can talk through these, but I think we should just focus on the ones we like.
Yep.
And say, hey, do we like anything for Orlando? And I would say, yeah, I like. There's one particular thing I like for Orlando, and it's not the over or the under. I like Jalen Suggs for Rookie of the Year. And I know you're Pistons fans, but the reason for this is that Jalen Suggs is probably in the best situation of any rookie to put up stats on a garbage team. So there's no, if you look at Orlando, there's everybody on that team is hurt. Fultz is out. I think what's the name of the other guy? The one that's problematic. I forget his name. I like him, but he's problematic. You know what I mean?
Yes, he was the one that decided not to take a knee during Black Lives Matter,
and then blew out his knee.
Yes,
in the same Yes. Sometimes God. Sometimes
Jonathan. You think God did that?
God has a sense of has a sense of drama sometimes. It's yes, you won't take a knee, okay. But basically the point is that team is very short-handed. It's very unpredictable now because we don't think teams aren't necessarily want to tank because there's no. The incentive is less to tank because they changed the rules on that a little bit. So I think, they're going to be trying to win games, I guess. But I think the best bet for their is Suggs because you're getting Suggs at 7.5 to 1. That means if you bet $100 that you win, you want $150. And he is in the best situation of any rookie in terms of putting up stats. Other guys will talk about the rookies, of course. particularly the one on your team coming up next, Glunt.
Yep.
He's the one who is in the best situation in terms of there's nothing else on that team, right? So they're going to be playing him 35 minutes a night. He's going to get as many touches as he wants. So, and he's pretty good too. I mean, he also is like a good dunker, so he's going to have some highlights. So yeah, I like look 7.5 to 1. I think it's a good price.
My only concern with the worst player or the best player on a worst team is exactly that. Like if there was another rookie that was playing on a team that was closer to contention, or I think the voters would give that player the nod, only because their team doesn't suck so bad. Like you said,
I mean, if you look,
you should have more numbers. Like that's how that works.
If you look at these guys, I mean, like a lot of these guys, like there isn't that guy. I know what you mean, right, but there isn't that. I'm not going to pick book night. There is one guy we talk a lot of. There's one guy we'll talk about, but he's 100. He's more like 100 to 1.
Right.
But he has I joked that he has the best jersey of. He's going to have the best jersey of any NBA player. We'll get to it, right?
So we're going to go on to the next team, and that is my Detroit Pistons. And they just held. By the way, they just held open tryouts for their G League affiliate, the Motor City Cruise, in which the Pistons Twitter champion Nicholas Henkel speaking.
Yeah, I saw Nick. Yeah, Nick.
Yes, he went to the tryout, which is funny. And they showed him making a three, wearing jersey number 69. So I mean, the trifecta, right? So like all three. And he also wore the left ear dangly earring a la Jordan, which I thought was funny. But so the Pistons they're in rebuild mode or restore mode. They call it, not rebuild in Detroit. It's a restore mode. And they got Cade Cunningham and had a good rookie crop from last year coming back. You like them they're at how many? 25?
Yeah, I believe so they won the equivalent of 23 games last year.
Yep.
Their over is 23.5. Their under is 25.5. So good spread. And when I've done this, I went through it. I like their over on them, so I think they're going to win 23.5 games. And I'm playing it. There's a couple of reasons for this. Casey's the guy who, this team's going to play hard. I have my issues with Casey. My issues with Casey are at the elite level, and with a team that's like this, a lot of rookies developing. And I think they're going to compete. I mean, there's enough. It's funny. It's a fairly low number. I think there's a good shot. Like the line that we use when I do it in a real jam, it's like, could you see this team winning 5 more games, right, or 5 less games?
Yep.
And so right now they're over under 7.5. The question is, can I see this team winning 29 games? And my answer is, yeah, sure. I mean, I could totally see him winning 29 games in the East. I think one thing with Cade is that Cade was better than his surroundings in college. So a lot of the stuff that he did would be wasted effort because the team around him kind of sucked. And there's guys on this Pistons team that can actually score the ball. So I think that this is actually a better setup for him. There's a chance that he's there's a chance that he's the best player on the court 50% of the time. If that's the case, then yeah, I think they can win 29, 30 games fairly easily. As I said, I think Casey will get him there. There's some interesting pieces there. I mean, this isn't a great team by any shakes yet. But there's enough talent here that I would go in. And 20, I think 23.5 is a number that they could definitely.
Yep. I don't know that the Cavs, Wizards, right? I mean, kind of.
Oh, by the way, the
expect to be bad.
Cade's odds will be the year are 260 plus 260, which is fine. I don't think it's great. I think even though I like Cade, I'd rather bet the over than bet him for rookie year because I don't necessarily think that he's going to get the full enough to win rookie of the year.
Right. Because
there's a bunch of guys on this Pistons team that need to get fed, right? You would agree with me. There's a bunch of guys like Jeremy Grant. There's a couple guys, they're going to want the ball. They're going to do things, right? So yeah, I think Cade can be good, but I think from the point of view of getting to rookie of the year, no, probably not.
Well, he's also playing alongside Killian Hayes, and so how those two play together is going to matter, and who's primary ball handler and who's getting more minutes, and there's a lot that's there. There's a lot of variables that are there that we don't know. So yeah, it creates a lot of risk.
Yeah, if you switched Cade and Suggs, I would definitely love Cade on Orlando with rookie of the year, but not on I think on the Pistons because the Pistons I think are going to be I think the Pistons would like to get to the 10th seed. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, they do. I think they would.
Yeah. They're still going to be playing. There's a very good chance the Pistons are going to be playing. Like if they're at like 23 and 23 and 50. No, wait. It would be 23 and 50, right? If they're 23 and 52, then they're going to be playing hard those last 5-6 games of the season. I would feel good holding an over ticket because I feel like they're going to be playing to try to get the seed and they're going to be playing to try to get the over. So that's what we like. I think the Cavs are a bad team.
Yeah.
And I'm not like, I think the under, but the under for them is like 27. That's it's 27.5 across the board for over or under.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
I'm like,
Orlando enough.
I'll watch Orlando. I'll watch Cleveland to see Mobley. I'm curious to see Mobley. I like Mobley college. I want to see how he develops. But other than that, I'm not really interested in the Cleveland Cavaliers. But like we've grown past the need for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like
Laurie Markkinen, and now they got Allen on a long deal, and then they bring in a 7-footer, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You got an undersized shooting guard. Like they trade Larry Nance. I like Larry Nance. Yeah.
They traded him. It's like
Don't care for it. Don't care for it. No.
Now we're getting into interesting territory.
Yeah.
The Wiz. So they won the equivalent of 39 games last year. Their over-under is set at 34.5. And I think Vegas is basically treating it, they lost West, so they got worse. I don't necessarily think they got worse. The models that I run doesn't think they got worse. In fact, the tricky bit with this team was like, even though Westbrook got traded, but the pieces they got back are decent. They got KCP, they got gotta forget his name. What's the other Laker guy they got?
Kuzma.
Kuzma. They got Kuzma too. And I like the other thing was like the Wizards had a lot of injuries last year. So they're, I think, Beal was there, but they're gonna get full year with Beal. They're gonna get like God, I'm blanking on the roster, and like it's like
they had Roy Hachimura.
But Denny got hurt too.
Yep.
Denny's the other guy that got hurt. Wait. I know him. Like, I just want to like say his name. It's not Denny, not Dinwiddie. Bertans is the other guy who was hurt.
Yep.
And so like both of those guys. I like the rotation on this team. The question on this, could I see the Wizards winning 39 games again? The answer is yes. Yes, like to win for that year. Because I like Beal, particularly like even if they make a trade, I think that if they make a trade, that might actually get better, right? So the trade Beal, I think they're going to get players that you can actually play, right? So it's that organization likes to compete. They're another team that I think is going to be trying to get into the 8-9 conversation. So I like the over on like 34.5 is the number that I like the over on. I feel comfortable on. Now the division, my model kind of like when I ran some Kelly odds on this and said, but like I don't like the division odds for them right now are plus 16. So 16-1 is their odd division odds. And then actually, you can get it to 33-1 if you go to the best. I would not necessarily want to buy that now. I want to watch a little bit. I want to see that they have a new coach too, and I want to see if they play well under this new coach. Is really what I want to see, right? So if I see them and they're playing well, like 5 or 6 season with this new coach, I'd be interested possibly in the shots. Possibly, it's a long shot. It's the Southeast, some French Southeast.
I think it's going to be tough with the Heat and the Hawks for them to jump them, but. Yeah,
I think it's interesting. I don't have it written down as something I like, but I think that I like their own. I mean, they definitely like their own cat. Yeah, because they don't have Scotty Brooks anymore, so I like it. I mean, I think that's that's an interesting kind of.
I've been on the anti-Scotty Brooks bandwagon since early on OKC. Just like
he calls some dumb stuff. It's just God, what are you doing? Raptors.
Yeah, Raptors.
I'm not going to call them Toronto Raptors. I'm going to call them the Raptors. And there are reasons for that. I don't think they play 41 games at home. And if I don't think they play 41 games at home because of COVID, I think at this point we have to assume that like your priors are that like the U.S. like people in the U.S. are stupid. Sorry, but like about COVID. So I don't think that the Raptors are going to be able to cross the border to Canada for the 41-game season. So that means they're not going to play the whole for half the season. So I think that they won the equivalent of 31 games last year.
Yep.
Their over-under is set at 37.5. So 36.5 for over, 37.5 for under. I love the under.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't think they get 41 games at home. So they're going to be playing on the road again. That's a huge disadvantage. They're playing in a murder division. Like, literally, that division they're playing in is the best division in basketball. Everything in that division is great. And they're not going to get any real home games. So,
right.
I'm like, yeah, I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to struggle. They might actually blow it up even more. They're kind of a little bit of a dark horse in the Ben Simmons stuff. Or like their dark horse trade partner for the Warriors. Like, so if Ben Simmons can't force a trade to the Warriors, then I think that there's a chance that the Warriors make a trade with the Raptors and kind of just like the Raptors really kind of blowing it up in that situation.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think play is the way. And I actually really didn't like what they did on the draft. I didn't like what they drafted either. So it's kind of like,
yeah,
there's a lot not to like.
The draft to me, they drafted someone who's already in Pascal Siakam's spot. So
yeah, they drafted like they were going to trade Pascal Siakam. Yes,
right. Yeah, exactly.
So they're not going to get basically. I think they're almost kind of treating this as a lost season because they understand they're not going to get to play at all. I think
right. That's 10 years ago. That's rough. That's rough. I mean, that's brutal. The Charlotte Hornets. You don't like their. You don't like what they're doing. I like what they're doing over there.
I like what they're doing, but let me watch what they're like. So they won 38 games last year. They're over under set at 37.5. Is this a better team than last year's?
I'm not even looking at that as much as I'm looking at what improvements they made, but also
yeah. I mean, I think there's some improvements on there, but
yeah.
I mean, I think the East is tougher. I think they lost some key guys. I like Devontae Graham. They lost him, and I think Hayward always gets hurt. And I mean, you don't really have a center still on this team. They had Kelly Oubre, who I don't like, right?
No.
So you've got Kelly Oubre and H. Smith. It's like, I don't love it. I mean, I think that like a lot of it relies on LaMelo, and I mean, I think they go under this number, but I'm not willing to put that for full, right? So I think that I think 37.5 is a decent line, and I don't want it. Right, because I don't know what the team is going to be, right? And again, I worry that they have pieces that like get hurt a lot. So I'm kind of sitting there looking at this number and going like, I'm not really that interested.
Yeah.
I mean, are you? I mean,
it's a hard one. If I go game by game, are there games that they're going to slip up and miss? Yeah. Are there teams better than them? Are there teams worse than them? And that puts you around not very good. So, I don't see them. They're not going to win their division. If I'm looking at the Hawks, I'm looking at the Heat. If they're third in the division, great. But where does that put you? And I just don't. I don't know.
Who has the better roster, them or the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Well, they have Cat.
And Anthony Edwards and D'Lo.
It's
tough. Like,
yeah, I might give it. Yeah,
if we're having this conversation, 38 wins is a lot. 38 wins is a lot of like. Could you see this team winning 43 games? Yes, no.
Nope.
No way in hell. Not in this conference. No, not in that division. No, I couldn't see it. So like the answer to me, like it's definitely under, but like, could I see them winning 32? No, either. So I think the line's good. And I'm like, stay away from it. The next one is what. This is weirdly. So the Knicks historically are a team that are very public. They generally go under. So over like so generally they've gone under about on a 65%, 12 times in the last 19 seasons they've gone under. But this year, weirdly enough, so they won 47 games last year. It's a Thibs team. Thibs always basically leaves it on the court. His teams always play as hard as possible. And the line is set at the over-under line is set 40.5 for the over and 41.5 for the under. So basically, you're betting that the over is betting they're going to go 500. And given that this is a Fibs team, given that only 2% of their minutes are going to rookies, given that they added they add Kemba, and if they get anything from Kemba, this is a cakewalk for me. This is a cakewalk over. I think this team is going to win 44, 45 games. And I understand that the division is tougher, but the way Fibs team works is that he's going to play his guys 30. So he's going to play his guys every night of the playoffs, right? So they're going to win a lot of games they shouldn't win simply because they're going to play super duper hard and they're going to care more every night than most other teams. So even though their division is very tough, I think that the over is the obvious number up.
So in terms of the Knicks, I think anytime we have a team that plays, like you said, they give a shit. They're going to play hard defense. That you're going to be in almost every game. I don't remember any games last year.
They're going to play 6-man rotations too every night.
Yeah.
They're just going to run their guys ragged. There's a bunch of young guys on this team that Barrett, Knicks fans would give a shit because we thought they were a top 150 guy. A top 100 guy last year. But he's improving. He's getting better year to year. And they, as I said, they added Kemba, if you get anything from Kemba, that's a huge upgrade from what they had last year. So, a bunch of young guys, they play hard. This is great developing. Could I see this? The question is, could I see this team winning 46 games? Yes, I could see them winning 46 games. And could I see this team winning 34? No. Less than 5 guys would have to die for that to happen. And even then, I would kind of figure that this is going to somehow get them to 500, right?
Well, just they'll call Joakim Noah out of retirement and backup center him. And I'm joking. Speaking of Joakim, what about the Bulls?
So there's a bit the Bulls are very they're very hot pick on the over. They won the equivalent of 35 games. They get about half and half. They're not will beat the over under is 41.5. And this is one of the easiest unders on the board for me, right? I'm not a big DeMar DeRozan fan. I loved everything else that they did except DeMar DeRozan. And it's just, his plus-minus is bad. His defense is bad. He's going to be taking shots away from people who are better than him. So he's going to be taking shots away from Zach LaVine and Vucevic close to games. And he does, it's not that he's terrible. It's just it's the argument, he's very, he hurts you by being on the court in these close games at the end. He's also he's at 32 now. And this hasn't really worked anywhere that he's been. So teams that he's left have gotten better. We'll talk about the other side of that, when we get to the Western Conference. But I'm not a huge fan of this. And
I didn't think their signings made sense. I don't think their trades made sense. I don't think anything they've done made sense. I think them trying to show Zach LaVine, we're building around you, and then Zach LaVine goes and plays for USA Basketball. He gets to play with actual talent. And, if you listen to other pods and you hear how he felt about that, he was pretty impressed. And I don't feel like they did enough to get them to where they need to be. And they got rid of defense and they brought in bad defense. And I don't like them at all. I just don't like the Bulls.
The DDR trade was dumb. It was one of the dumber trades. And literally the contract they gave was stupid as hell. But Lonzo and Caruso are good defensive players. This is part I hate. It's their best lineup is going to be the lineup, the lineup without, when DDR is out, that's going to be the best lineup because it's going to be good defensively. It's going to have switchy defensive players. Fat Will can actually do defense. Then, Zach LaVine, Vucevic, Pat Will, Lonzo, and Caruso is a decent five, right? But then you're going to put DeMar DeRozan in, and it's going to go to shit because your defense is going to collapse a level. And you're going to be taking touches away from Vucevic on the boats, LaVine on the wings. So, and you paid him more than anybody else on the team. So they're definitely going to play him. So I hate when it's so good until it wasn't, right? And yeah. And then I was jumping on the real DM. It's the only way I can see this number going over is DeMar DeRozan misses 60 games. But I'm not wishing. Well, he's getting paid, so as long as the leg doesn't roll off, I'll still walk. I'm not gonna. But yeah, I don't. I think it's one of the easier unders on the board. And I think they're in a rough conference. They're really actually pretty rough too. And do you think who do you think wins more games, the Knicks or the Bulls?
Knicks. Then if they think about it.
Who do you think wins more games, the Wizards or the Bulls? That's more interesting.
That one I could see being a lot closer. What were the Wizards today again?
We had the Wizards are 34.5. Yeah, but the Bulls should not be rated at 6 games better than the Wiz. That's no. They're not. They're really not. They're but the Wiz are too low and the Bulls are too high. And I get why, but DeMar is flash, not substance. And I think that this season is a good demonstration of that for the Bulls. And again, I think they're going to be interesting, but they don't have the defensive presence in the hand center where they had Robin there, and I think they're going to miss it. But yeah,
you talk about easy unders. How about an easy over? Next one, Indiana. What do you think?
Yes, you're talking because okay. So numbers are they won 39 games. They grew 39 games last year. Their over is 42.5. It's kept going up. It was, I believe, when I first did this, it was 40. I think it's this number has been going up because it's been getting bet up. It's now 42.5 for over and 43.5 for under. I think it's fairly easy up over. And the reason being that who's their coach now?
Rick Carlisle.
So they have a better coach. To be fair, I don't think their last 2 coaches are bad. Last 3 coaches weren't bad, but I think Carlisle does a lot with a little, and this team actually has a good bench of talent and some interesting pieces. And even the conference is rough, but I think could I see this team winning 47 games? Yeah, probably. I think they have enough talent to do that. They did some of that last season. They kind of ran into the injury bug, and they typically Indiana is one of the Indiana is the least public team there is. So generally, Indiana in the last 19 years has gone over 12 times, right? So they typically go over because their number is too low. Now, again, I got into this number when it was 40.5. Now it's up to 42.5, right? So it keeps going up. There's going to be a point where no, but yeah, it's still at 42.5. It's still a decent number. It's still a number that I kind of I had them at. Well, it's getting now so my projection has them 42. So it's a little, it's starting to get a little into maybe don't play it. But I still think if you get it at 41.5 or 42.5, if 41.5 is better, 42.5 is okay, right?
Yep.
So
how about Boston?
I think we were on the Pacers. Sorry, the Hawks.
Sorry, Hawks. You're right.
So the best number for the Hawks is the division. I believe the divisions are not, or let's see if it's gone up. Division line has actually gone down up. Damn it. It's 140 now.
It was at 175, right?
No, I said I'd like to get it better than 135. So I haven't gone, I believe it's actually moved. It was actually, hold on, let me see this. So when it was 130, now it's 140. Now it's 140. So the trick with the Hawks is I'd like to get their division at over 175. So what that means is I don't want to bet on the Hawks until they lose a couple games to start the season, and you get them at 175. I think long term they're a better team than they keep for the season. They're in the sense of they have a lot of young guys. They have good depth. They've shown they get there. I like the players they added in the draft. I like Capella, I like the guys that kept John Collins. So I do think this team, I think this team goes over. I think this team is going to be, they won the equivalent of 47 games last season. The line on them is 47.5. It's a young team, so they should get better. And I think they're going to be playing hard every night. And I think that I wouldn't bet the over on the Hawks. I want to bet the division odds is what I want on the Hawks, right?
Got it.
But I do think they're going to I think 47 is about right, 47.5. So I don't feel strongly they're going to go too far over that. But I do feel that they're going to be in the division on the entire season. So again, try to get that number at closer to plus 200 if you can. And it's the Southeast. At some point, it'll be closer to close. But unless the Heat completely fall apart, I don't think they're going to. But I do think that you're going to be able to get that number closer to plus 200. And that's what you want to do with that.
Oh, okay.
Now we start talking about like the second Atlantic team, that my Boston Celtics.
That's right. So Celtics are they're they're in the same division as the Sixers and the Nets, so that makes things tough. Quite frankly.
And the Knicks. The Knicks have
And
to
the
count
Knicks.
this year.
Yep.
They won the equal of 41 games last year, but really they got hit by the injuries. They
Injury.
hard.
Yep.
Their line is the same as the Hawks, 47.5. And I mean, they have a new coach. I like the players that they have. So the trick with the Celtics is that their best six is not necessarily the obvious six, and it comes down to whether or not the coach gets to the right six players, right? So They should be playing Tatum, they should be playing Brown, they should be playing Smart, they should probably be playing Robert Williams, they should be playing Pete Pritchard, they should be playing Horford. That's my six for them. And then Aaron Nesmith as he develops. Notice I didn't say Josh Richardson. Notice I didn't say Dennis Schroeder. If the more Dennis Schroeder plays, the worse this team is going to be. Because Dennis Schroeder is not good. Like there's a bunch of other guys like Dennis Schroeder. Like I didn't like. I mean, he's cheap, but like he's basically to me the fourth best guard on the team, right? So like if their coach Udoka can actually figure out the correct lineup quickly, then there's upside on this team. But I do think it's going to take them a little bit of time to like kind of gel together. I do think this team is better than it's definitely better than it was. I tried to expect something better than last year. But the line. I mean, I'm like, maybe I think they win like 46-47, right? I'm not old. Well, unless Tatum jumps the level, and then if Tatum jumps the level, then I wish I could bet top 5 for MVP because he's never finished the top 5, and you kind of have to finish in the top 5 before you go all the way to MVP, right? So I think it's a very good season for like Jason Tatum to finish in the top 5 for MVP. And this like so if the Celtics go over, it's because Jason Tatum kind of like had himself a hell of a season. And I don't like the division odds because I do think that the Sixers and the Nets are just really, 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 really good. And I'm getting the money I'm getting is like what 12-1, and I don't like that. I don't like their conference odds. I don't like their title odds, right? So I think that like conference and division in the Atlantic is like don't even worry about it, right? So so we're titled, and it's like don't worry about it, right? No, it's like. And again, I think the Celtics are going to be a fun team. They have some interesting young talent on their team. I'm curious whether or not the coach is going to figure out the lineup that he needs to go to quickly, though, right? It's like there's some guys that should play, right? And if he gets to those guys and those guys are healthy, then they have a good season. But I don't. Again, it's a rookie coach. I don't know what's going to be. The Heat.
I personally am not. Until I see the Celtics do it, sustain excellence, I've had a hard time buying in. And this was supposed to be this young core that was going to do amazing things.
But they were really good when healthy last year. They just were never healthy last year. There's no story where it seems like.
But that's also like I know the compressed schedule like really killed a lot of teams because of injuries. Totally get it.
Yeah.
But like at some point you got to show it too. You can't just be like, but when we're healthy, when I'm 10 feet tall, I can dunk easily too. It's not going to happen all the time.
But I mean, like the teams that played deep in the bubble and then like had to turn around quick, all kind of died. And I mean, like it was so last year was the worst year by playoff model ever. Like it was the first time we like a playoff model that I run losing money. And the reason it was, and I kind of did a breakdown on Twitter on why this was, but the main reason was like, so I typically, but you plan in for about 20% injuries, and this season was like, it was the outlier of outlier. Like every single series past the first round had a significant injury on both sides. And you can't forecast if you, like Giannis had like the whole knee thing before the finals. So we thought Giannis was going to be out. So the lines were totally wrong. And then he came back and played 40 some odd minutes every game. You can't plan for that. And like you're losing players left and right. So you can't really, a lot of teams just didn't have their best players. I think the Celtics have nominal health. Their 48-win team, 47-win team, I think they would be better if they were playing the Atlantic, but they are playing like part of the problem is like they're a better team, I think, on a roster basis. I think they're comparable or better than the Hawks, right? But the Hawks are playing in a significantly different. The Hawks are playing a significantly easier schedule than the Celtics are going to play. right?
Yep. Same thing. They're the Central. Yeah, if they were the Central, it'd be the same Kings too.
Right.
You saw this. You saw the stat with the Bucks, right? Like Floods only lost like 5 games or whatever against Central Division opponents or something crazy. Like, it's not even competitive.
Yeah, it's like, and I mean, the Celtics are going to play like that. What's their worst opponent? The worst opponent is the Raptors. And the Raptors, even if they're not great, they're still Nick Nurse coach team. They got some guys with experience. They're going to give you a tough game. And then the Knicks are a team that, like, we both like. So, like, we like the Knicks. We're going to get into, like, the other 2 teams in this conference, in this division. And those 2 teams are, like, we're talking about them possibly going to the finals. So, yeah, the Celtics are in a rough spot. It doesn't mean I think that it's a bad roster. It's just, I think they're one, they need to kind of figure out what the rotation is. I think 2, they're a player away. They need another player on the team to actually get to that elite level, or somebody needs to jump a level, right? And it's possible if they have a guy. I mean, they have a couple guys that could do it. I mean, I like Rob Will. I think Peyton Richards is interesting. I think Aaron Nesfield is interesting. I think Jaylen Brown's like shown some signs. But I mean, again, you don't know until you actually see them go through a full season. And again, I probably think that they're going to make it. I think they have the pieces to make a trade at some point, but I don't know if they're necessarily blow their wick this year. So, I mean,
right.
This is why I'm under fade. I'm like, yeah, I think they probably win 47. And I don't, there's nothing on the board for them that's interesting to me as a bet. I mean, if I could bet if I could bet Jason Tatum to finish top 5 in the MVP race, I would, but I can't. Nobody's listed those odds, right? That would be the best bet. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I think, is there anything you see on the board for the Celtics?
No, I really struggle with the new coach, like you said. And
he's supposed to be good.
I just want to see some consistency. That's what I really want to see. I want to see more consistent play. Awesome. You beat someone by 30 and then you lose by 10 the next night. It's just, you got to just play more consistently. And I think it was the right move, quite frankly, for Brad to get out of the coaching seat.
Well, Brad was a bad offensive coach. And this was part of the problem for the Celtics was like, because he was a bad offensive coach and he was very bad at like selling or working the refs, you lose a lot of games that you should win because their offense would just disappear for a quarter, right? Because he couldn't consistently get them. Like sometimes it's very simple to just like call a simple offense and run some simple plays on the offensive side, make some small adjustments and like get some easy buckets or like not even easy buckets, get some buckets, right? And I think that's the problem is the Celtics are a team that would get the gyps in these situations, and it probably cost them 2 finals appearances. Like people forget, like he got them to the conference, he got them to Game 7 on the conference finals. And he had leads in these games, and he just could not hold the leads in these Game 7s, right?
Yep.
Because and it was always the same thing. Like you were always like the other coach would make a defensive adjustment, and they would never be able to, they would try to do the whole ISO thing kind of come, but they couldn't run consistent enough offense to actually get him over the hump either time. And I think if they had been able to do that, if I think he'd been better at that, then I think that they would have gone to the finals.
Yep. Great.
So I think we need to kind of like press steam here a little bit to like finish out the East, right?
Yep. Let's get it. Miami.
I like the other play on the wins lead. The Heat are listed at 49.5. That's a kind of that's an interesting number. As much as I like Spurs is a very old squad, and the Heat, they take time off. I think they're going to try to have everyone else for the playoffs. I don't think they care about winning the Southeast. So I like the under. I think that they won 46, 47 and fairly easily. And I think that's like why I'm on the under play. Right. The number is fairly kind of aggressive.
But I want to see how playing a more defensive oriented style is going to impact, obviously, wins, losses, all those things. But, defense is hard. Defense, your body breaks down digging in like that and taking charges and diving on the floor and playing that style. So that's the biggest thing for me. The second one is, are we ever going to see bubble Tyler Hero again? Like, is he ever going to play that way again? Or is he just now going to be this average bench player? So you mean questions I have.
Go to the, what the store brand from Sand Club is? I think it's Kirkland, right? Excellent. You're talking about Kirkland, Danny Green? Yeah, no. like I called it BTS Patty Mills is what I called it. Like he, I mean, my God, the man basically like parlayed like playing it on the same rims for like 2 months into like a bunch of endorsement deals. He's not great. I don't think he's a good player. And yeah, I think Tyler Hero, I mean, like they should have like sold high on Tyler Hero. Like I have a buddy who sold one of his Top Shot cards for like $300,000. So wow, good for him. I was like, yeah, one of these limited cards. And I was like, he's mad about it. I'm like, dude, you sold high on store brand KCP. What the hell? What do you want to happen about?
Always 99 KCP.
Always 99 KCP. There you go.
All right. So the Sixers. What do you do? The Sixers.
So the Sixers are fairly simple. You're getting a discount on so they won the equal of 56 games last year. The team hasn't changed that much. I mean, Dwight's not there, but I think you're getting 51.5 as the number. And the reason you're getting that number is because of the Ben Simmons trade. Historically, Daryl Morey wins these trades. So the logical bet on the Sixers is the over. Right? The tricky bit is since we don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, I think the better bet is probably plus 360 to win the division.
Got it.
Because as much as I like the Nets, I think that there's a good chance that the Nets might just want to have everybody healthy for the end of the season. So you're kind of at plus 360, plus 350. You're kind of saying like that's a very discount. For both of those, the 51.5 and the 350 are discount prices relative to the quality of the roster. The Sixers have. I think the Sixers are probably going to be a 56 win team unless something weird happens with injuries. Even if they keep Simmons, then that's that. If they trade Simmons for something decent, which I think Morey can be trusted to get something decent back for him, like I don't know, C.J. McCollum. Then yeah, I mean, that's good. So I think over 51.5 is a good number. I think Embiid 10-1. I don't like personally, but I do think it's an interesting and decent number. He has a shot at winning. But again, you're kind of betting Embiid is going to play more than 70 games. That's what you're doing. Anyway, that seems to be kind of a what would we say, like an aspirational bet.
Bucks.
So the Bucks they won the goal of 53 games last year. Their number is 54.5 and 55.5. I'm over on them. And I'm doing not over on them because I think that it has to do with the Nets too. I think both the Bucks and the Nets just want home court in the eventual conference finals.
Agree.
I think there's no I don't think these are the two best teams in the league. It's not close. But the best bet is there's some interesting bets on the Bucks. I think Giannis at 8-5-1 to win the MVP is interesting. Them to win the Bucks 9-1 to win the title is probably one of my favorite bets on the board. Yep. It's a ridiculous bet. The Bucks should not be 9-1. This is like somebody's like, and I know why, because the Lakers make the flashy moves. But here's the thing: the Bucks are the same team they were last season. They're a young team. They basically, Giannis just went out and laid at 340 burgers and a 50 burger in the final. And really their weaknesses in the playoffs were that Bud did not play his guys enough, and he figured out not to do that. So Giannis only played 40 minutes once of the first 11 playoff games under Bud, and then in the last 8 he played over 40 minutes 7 times. So once they started doing that, then really the only thing that can really stop them if they're healthy is the Nets, right? Yep. And so 9-1 to win the title is a bet that you're going to be sitting there in these conference finals and blessing your luck that you got to lead, you got them 9-1. The books are going to be bad. They're going to be begging you to cash in that 9-1, right? Yep. For a lower number. So take it and enjoy it. Next team,
now the Nets.
The Nets. So the Nets won the equivalent of 55 games. They weren't healthy most of the season. They also only did not have a full season hard. And now the number is set at 55.5. It's a good squad, a good coaching squad, still have growth. I think this is an easy over. And I think the Nets and the Bucks both care about having home court in their series against each other. Yep. They're 260 to win the title. That was 260 a week ago. Let me see what they are now. Their title odds for the Nets are plus 260. Yes, plus 235 is consensus. Plus 260. That's a good number. I mean, you want what I'm saying is you want to be holding Bucks at 9-1, Nets at 2.5, 260-1, right?
Yep.
And if you're holding both those numbers, there's a very good likelihood that you're going to be holding either 2.6 to 1 action or 9-1 action coming out of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then both these teams, I think, would beat any team coming out of the West in 5 games. Pretty much, it would be my take. And yes, I said what I said. I think both these teams are better than anybody coming out of the West.
I think it's hard to disagree with that. Arturo, the Eastern Conference is going to be a fantastic dogfight. It's nice having the power shift back toward the East so there's actually good games on every night.
Yes.
And I appreciate all the insight. And thanks for helping us wrap up the East. Next time you're on, we'll do the West.
We'll do the West. Okay. Follow you, man.
Sounds great, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget, give Arturo a follow at American Numbers on Twitter. I'm Binkowski on Twitter. The podcast is TDBP Official on Twitter. And if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please do subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Thanks, everybody.